live a life of freedom and adventure? Are you wanting more than the daily grind? Me too. Welcome to the Emma Lovell Show, a place where we talk about living a life you love now. I'm your host, Emma Lovell, and my number one value is freedom. I've spent the last 14 years running a business and traveling the world, and now I take my husband and toddler along for the adventure too. It's possible, and I know you can create a life doing what you truly love as well. This podcast will inspire, motivate, and encourage you to go after your dreams, to create a life you love and to live it now, not wait for a time or someday in the future. I'll be sharing episodes weekly about how I harmonise business, travel, and self-care. I'll also bring on incredible guests to share their journeys, the wins, the challenges, and how they're creating a life they love. Let's jump in and get dreaming. This is a space for you to manifest a life you love. I would like to acknowledge and recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples of this place, now known as Australia. I am grateful for the continuing care of the land, waterways and skies where I work, live, listen, learn and play. From here on Yugambeh country and from wherever you are listening, I pay my respects to the elders past and present. Welcome to the Emma Lovell Show today. I'm delighted to have a fabulous guest with me, someone that I've aligned with very quickly and wanted to share with you, our audience. So welcome to the podcast today, Anne-Marie Grace.
Thanks so much for having me, Emma. It's a pleasure to be here.
So do you want to tell the story of how we met? Because it's kind of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely dive into that. So I am a soul alignment coach. I'm also a professional astrologer, and I have been chatting with some people about astrology, and they were skeptics. And it got me thinking, wouldn't it be interesting to have a conversation with some skeptics or people who have never had an astrology reading before? And so I put out a request through a media algorithm organization, and that's how Em and I were introduced to each other. And so we ended up having a really beautiful conversation and saw some parallels in our lives, and here I am.
Yes, that's SourceBottle. So I've been on SourceBottle for, I want to say almost as long as my business has been around. It's such a wonderful resource. And
It definitely is.
I actually have never used it for shout outs, but maybe once or twice, but I've got amazing media from it. And,
Same. And it was actually my first time to do a shout out. And I just thought I was going to put it to my Facebook community. And I thought, no, it would actually be really interesting to read for someone I don't know anything about. And so here we are.
So I was like, I'm not a skeptic. My husband's a skeptic. I was like, but please pick me, because I've never had, and I have been very curious. So I've been diving in, and why this, I say it's so aligned and the conversations come up at the right time. It's like, I have been looking a lot more into the moon, into understanding my star signs. I've always loved knowing my sun sign. I'm a Leo and very Leo. I talk about it. I'll use it in posts, sort of just in conversation, very much part of my identity. But I didn't understand the impact of the chart.
How much? And how much Leo?
How much Leo? Yeah. And I was given a chart by a family friend, actually used to do astrology, and she did one for my son and she did one for my 30th birthday. But yeah, as you'll know, Emery, we've sort of got, they're so full on. I think that's the thing, is they're so in depth. And she gave me this booklet, and just the language in it and everything. I think where it really helps is having someone to interpret it. So I was coming around more and more to the fact that I probably needed someone to do a reading for me to fully, and just for me, because, people will dabble and they'll say a bit here and there. So how did you come to be, and your reading was so beautiful and so accurate and thorough, so I appreciate it. How did you get to be an astrologer? Or do you call yourself an astrologer?
Yeah, I do call myself an astrologer, but I probably call myself a soul alignment coach as the higher umbrella. And so how I came to this work is that I guess I first learned about my first natal chart reading was in 2012, and it really piqued my interest. I was like, wow, how does this woman? She spent 2 hours going through all of my characteristics, my personality, some events that maybe happened, not specific events, but just overarching themes that might have happened in my childhood, etc. And I thought, how does she know this just from a simple birth time and place and date of birth? And so that piqued my interest. And I probably started reading a little bit at that point in time. But as you've shared, it's dense. The symbols, it's another language, right? And so it's not something that you can easily jump into. And life is busy. It took me a while to invest more fully. But when I went away actually, I'll say that before that, I worked with a life coach who introduced me to human design and gene keys. And there were a couple of things there that really stood out for me that I thought, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I knew that they came out of astrology. So I got more interested in all three of the modalities around the same time. And when I went away to start writing my book in 2024, I took all of this material, like all of these books, I had podcasts, I had things I wanted to listen to, and I went away for 3 weeks and I just really did a deep dive. And I started seeing the threads between them and making sense of it. And I know now from my human design, one of my channels is all about making complex ideas simple. And so for me and I initially just started doing it on myself, and then I started doing it on my husband and I was like, oh, it'd be interesting to look at the kids. And by the end of that 3 week trip, I had created what I call Your Soul's Unique Blueprint, which is a synthesis of the three together. And my own journey and why this really landed for me is that I have a tense aspect between my career and public identity and my home life, as well as my personal identity and relationships. And a lot of people can have this cross in their angles, but mine has played out quite pronounced in my upbringing and the decisions I've made in my life. And I had gotten to a point at this crossroads when I was working with this life coach that I'd come to this realization that I'd left behind all of my art, which is what I had studied in university. And it really opened up quite a wound. And I had a lot of layers of grief that I had to unpack. And over a several year period was really looking at and reflecting on the conditioning, what had shaped my perspective. And when I could see it in my chart and see it as part of my journey, because everything in my understanding of things is that our soul invites in challenges as a way of growth, and that we are here to grow and learn in Earth School while we're here on this planet. And so when I was able to piece together my story and see and make sense of it all, which gave me so much more just relief, I guess, or, it's okay to embrace how I've been. It's okay that my life has not been linear. It's okay to accept that I like change. I like to have fluidity. I don't like everything just being one way. I'm a manifesting generator, which means I like to have multiple passions, that I like to be juggling lots of things. And that really landed for me. And then I'm a 6/2. The 6 is kind of the teacher. They go through quite a journey of trial and error and then more introspective phase before they step out as a role model. But in the background, the 2 is the hermit / natural, someone who has a natural talent, but really needs to have space, solitude, time away from others to nurture that. And I'd always been brought up to believe that extroversion was a better way to be in the world, and to allow myself to actually accept that I need that downtime, that I need the space, that like my soul craves that space. That was a real permission slip for me. And so I think just the more I learned, the more I realized this really resonates for me. And when I can feel like I can just be who I am instead of trying to be who I've been taught to be or think I should be, it just takes the weight off.
Yeah. And for those listening, there's a beautiful wall of art next to Anne Marie. Her whole wall is covered in art. And I'm nodding along because I've got the 2 as well. And that hermit is something I've only learned about in the last 3 or 4 years. And as someone who's known to be very extroverted, and in our businesses, we have to be visible and we have to show up. And the thing about social media too is that people don't realize that like they see it all at once and see it all on, and it's like, yeah, but I like scheduled that. They're like, oh, you're always out and about doing things, or you're always talking and you're always doing stuff. I was like, no, I'm in my house by myself, not talking. Like, and how much you need that. And I feel like the more and more you're stepping into that, into your thing, the more and more space you need. And like,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting. There's something as well you said was like, yeah, like just sort of the expectation of what it's meant to look like, of what this should look like, of what others wanted you to look like. Because I've had similar in that it's, someone with the, especially with the manifesting generator, I'm a generator, having multiple things going on at once. Feel like, no, you just really need to do one thing. And I'm like, I can't,
Mm,
and they're like, you can't do many things. And I'm like, no, no, I can't do one thing. And it's like this being told, and
mm,
by people who think they know you, and I know that they want the best for you, but
hmm
this trying to tell you, and you've just got this knowing that you're like, no, no, that doesn't, and it's like, you actually don't really know me. And so
mm,
it's difficult to find and know yourself when you are being told by so many,
yeah,
this is the way it looks, or this is the way you are. And you're like,
yes,
who are you to
yes.
tell me? But, to kind of, it's quite rebellious, isn't it, to go
Mm,
to do it yourself, to do it your way.
it is. Well, I think it takes a real deep belief that you know yourself best. And in the work that I do, I always say, like, I'm a guide. I'm not a guru. I'm here to ask the questions to find your answers. I don't have the answers for you. You have your answers. Like, and some of them are so covered with the dirt or film, or like the protective layers or whatever it is, that you might not even be aware of what it is at the conscious level. But in the unconscious, there is still that knowing. And so, um, two of the aspects of the work I do, one is this inherent design, looking at your soul's path through the lens of human design and gene keys and astrology. And the second is helping you really touch into your intuitive wisdom, because within yourself, you have all the answers. And so, how do we help extract those and bring them back to the forefront, and then create a practical, strategic path forward with those in mind? And the biggest thing is getting people out of their head, like, and we've been taught, everyone, it's not our fault. It's just the culture that we've grown up in, and the technology. And I'm a huge advocate for AI. And I think probably the further I get along, it's like, oh, but we don't want to outsource everything, right? Because the robots don't know the answer. We have the answer. So you need to get to your answer and then use that as a tool to assist you, but not to give you the answers.
No, but even I think sometimes the way that astrology has been viewed and human design gene keys could go into the same basket is that I found that at times when I've talked about it, people are like, oh, but that's not who you are just because you're a Leo, or that's not who you are just because you're a generator. Like, you don't have to identify as that. And it's like, no. However, when you are being fed so much information from everywhere, everyone's trying to tell you. The marketing's trying to tell you, advertising trying to tell you, your
Mm,
family, your friends, your workplace, they're all trying to tell you who you are. Well, to
yeah.
have something that is a guide, as you said, a blueprint or a guide to go, I just think sometimes it's like, oh, that's why that's happening. Oh,
Mm,
that makes sense. No wonder I
yeah.
reacted like that. Or,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm mindful of that. Like the hermit, like we said, like no wonder I'm burning out and so friggin' exhausted because I'm not giving myself the space. Where it's like
Hmm.
when I found out there was a need of mine, then I can like protect it and
Yep.
advocate for it because that's sort of part of who I am. Now,
Hmm.
there could be, as you would have said, like there's so many variables and variations, but there is a theme. There is kind of a theme running throughout. And to have a personalized one, I just think it's a lovely guide. And it's like, yeah, I don't have to like, follow it like a rule book. Um,
Absolutely.
but I do think it's really nice to have something to go, oh, I, to help you make sense of what's going on.
Absolutely. Just in the same way that when you build a building, right? You have to start with a foundation. You start with the framework. You start with, the edges, the container, the structure, right? And then what you do with it is up to you. Like, how am I going to paint the walls? How am I going to decorate? How am I going to do this, right? Like, so when you can understand some of the framework that's already there, right? Like, it just I was reflecting in a newsletter just yesterday about my desire for experience change. Like, I am excited by change, and I've got a few adjustments happening in our lives at the moment, and they're it's just interesting to watch how it plays out in the family. And with me, okay, I'm the one instigating some of these changes, but for me, it's like I feel calm and excited by change. My oldest son is not invigorated by change at all. He is a very fixed, energetic individual. Change it does not come easy to him. I have to warm him up. I have to plant the seeds. I have to, paint the broader picture. Here's what's not changing, and bring him along. Whereas the younger son was just like, oh, yep, that's fine, and it's just, okay.
I love it.
That's just their nature, right?
What were you doing like 2012 then? Like what were you doing for work? Obviously, like there's been a big time between that, but like what were you doing before you came to be doing this kind of work?
That's funny you ask. So in 2012, I went to a health retreat. I was working in the wine industry as a marketing strategist, and I've had kind of lots of different changes in my lifetime, but marketing has been the continuous arc amongst it all. And I was also working in my then husband's business, doing marketing and customer acquisition stuff. And I went off. It was a super high stress time. We were looking at selling my husband's business, and the stress levels were like palpable. And I was like, I need some time to decompress. It was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. So I went away and I looked at the menu of all the different things we could choose from, and you know what, why not? I have a very high level of skepticism, and I thought this might be entertaining. Let's just see, like, because at that point in time, all I knew was that I was a Virgo. And for those who don't know much about astrology, when you think about your star sign, that's where the sun is in your chart. And interesting to note that up until 1950, if someone asked you what your star sign was, you actually referred to your ascendant, which is a totally different spot on the chart and most likely a very different sign. And anyway, so the sun is where people, it's your core vitality, it's your personality. And anyway, so that was all I knew. And I went and had this reading with this woman. And as I said, she spent all this time. But yes, I was working in the wine industry and in marketing. Now, what I didn't know and what she flagged, looking, she goes, oh, you probably work in health and well-being. And she was looking at where my sun was placed in the chart. So we look at the energy of the planet. So again, here we're talking about the sun, but then we have to look at where does it actually land in the zodiac. So we look at which constellation is giving it the flavor. So the Virgo for me makes me organized and structured and frameworks and very analytical and very service focused, right? So yes, I understand all that. But then it placed in the sixth house. And the sixth house is what she was reading, which is the house of health and well-being and our daily routines and the work that we do just every day. And so she was reading it and she was like, oh, you probably work in health and well-being. And I said, yeah, that's the only thing that didn't land of everything she read about my chart. But what she didn't know was that about a week later, I was starting a yoga teacher training that was a 500-hour training. I didn't know that that was going to change the trajectory of my life. I'd already known that I had shifted out of 16 years of depression through my breath work and meditation. And that was why I was doing the training. But I was doing the training just to learn and understand. Like I have a mind that wants to understand. And so I wanted to know, why has this had such a pronounced change on my well-being? I didn't know that I was then going to feel so compelled by what I learned that I had to leave everything that I knew to follow a path that direction.
Yeah, wow. Oh my gosh.
Mm.
I mean, I know that I would like want to talk to you more. I wanted to talk, like we did our reading together and then you and I have emailed. I just want to talk to you more. There's so much fascination. I wish we had hours and hours. But I love that you were so open to that change. But it's funny that you've now done this thing the way we met, which was like through the skeptics. So how did they go? I mean, obviously we're going to hear them on the podcast and we'll link to them later, but you had one full skeptic, one who'd sort of had readings, was still a skeptic, and then me, who was just like all in but hadn't had a reading.
I actually had 4. So there was yourself. There was another woman who had never had a reading and really didn't know much about it, but was curious. And then I had 2 guys, and one of the guys was, he had a reading, but I think he'd had someone kind of look at it. I don't think it was an official reading, but he was like, I don't know. And I said, well, look, here's the thing. A chart holds so much information, and we can only distill that information in an hour. People are going to pull out different aspects based on their training, based on what stands out to them, maybe something they can even relate to and they can see a story behind, right? And so your chart can be read however many different ways there are people who are going to read it, right? Based on the experience of that individual on every level. Anyway, so this guy had some readings, but had seen some things that were like, yeah, but other things he was like, nah. And then the last person, interestingly, was just a guy who came and did some work in the house, and we were chatting, and he asked me what I did, and I told him. And as we continued to chat, I was pulling out in my mind's eye, you're probably this, you're probably that. And by the end of the conversation, I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Would you be interested? So he was a total skeptic. And one of the things I start the readings that I do off with is looking at how your chart has been activated in your life over certain periods of time. And the very first thing I threw at him, he went, oh, and it was quite an intense experience that he'd had in his life. And then we went to another couple points, and for everyone, he was like, whoa. And so I think by the time we even got into some of the personality and other aspects, he was like, whoa, what is this? And it was, an interesting conversation. But, across the board, I feel what I hope people walk away with is more understanding of themselves, and again, more permission to just be who they are, to not see their path as wrong, just to understand it better and to embrace where they're going,
Yeah. And for me, so my husband's a bit of a skeptic. I think for me, understanding how we interact. So I love all these things because I'm like, well, if I understand myself better, then I can understand hopefully other people better. And I love personality tests and all these sort of profiling things and they use them in businesses, right? Like they use them. And so like, why are you so open to this one, which is like something that someone created, which is a score, that they've put all these numbers together and worked it out. Astrology is something that, and why I love countries like India, where I visit often, it's like it's just ingrained. They wouldn't even they won't pick a wedding date without going to see
consulting.
The person, and they will get married at 1 a.m. because that's the auspicious time. They'll wear certain gemstones, and it has to be gifted to you by certain people, and that's just that spirituality and connectedness to the world. And then so for someone like my husband, who is a scientist and marine biologist, it's like, so how the water affects, like the moon affects the water, there's a gravitational pull, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, science. Well, don't you think that if it's affecting the ocean, the largest body of thing on the earth, like water is the most thing we have, would that not affect us?
You as well. For sure.
I don't know. I love he goes to a psychologist sometimes, and she's like, I don't know what's happening in your brain is science. And I'm like, take our money. I love you. So he's not quite come around to it yet, but I'm like, it helps me so much to look at his chart and look at my son's chart and to understand how we're interacting with each other and reading something at such a young, my son was very first born, just getting a little tiny idea of how my Leo and his Capricorn and my husband's Aries and Capricorn would interact, and you just see it play out. And it doesn't mean that that's it. It's like, well, that's how we work with it. We're just aware of it. But coming around to say, do you feel like, I feel like it was very black and white a little while ago. It was like, you're woo-woo. You started talking about this stuff, you're woo-woo. And go, I don't do woo-woo or witchcraft. My brother, like witchy stuff. But I feel like a lot of these words, manifesting, I don't know, just some of these things are coming into conversation. And I said to you off air, do you think it's our algorithm and it's us being open that then people around us are open? Or do we think this is actually something that's shifting?
Yeah. And I think there's both. I think absolutely algorithm feeds us more of what we are interested in. But I do think that the overall conversation is also expanding. I mean, even when I first came to breath work and mindfulness, which was in 2008, that even mindfulness, yes, it was around, MBSR was around, but it was not prolific. The average person didn't talk about mindfulness. Now that is part of the daily, businesses are mindful themselves of the health and well-being of their employees, right? So there is a shift towards that. Now, as we move towards 2027, which is an auspicious time from a energetic perspective in human design, is the new paradigm, we are expecting a really fast change to the way that we relate to one another and how we are in general. And I think it's opening us up, our frequency level, our resonance with the other energies that play are just shifting. And so I think that there's more of that. And that's not to say that, like with all challenge, like there's a lot of challenge in the world at the moment, right? Challenge creates change, right? People don't change if they're not feeling tension, right? When things are easy, there's no need to change, right? So you could look at it from a philosophical perspective at a higher level and say the world is undergoing a lot of tension points at this point in time as part of the shift that is taking us to this new direction. And I ended up stepping away from the therapeutic yoga and medical space that I was working in because I wanted to be able to talk about the spiritual and the soul aspect. And I felt that because I was in quite a scientific, rigorous area, I mean, yoga as a whole, of course, its background is spiritual. Like that's where it's come from. But in Western society in particular, and the way that it has progressed in recent times, it has become more of an exercise and or maybe a little bit of a calming, regulating nervous system, etc. But I didn't feel like I had the ability to go into the spiritual aspects. And probably, my own growth trajectory was taking me that way as well. So the longer I was in that space, the more I felt like I can't actually speak to the things that I want to speak to. And I think, the more we speak to it, I remember when I first started doing some of the research for my book, when you look at who believes in paranormal activity or that there is more to life than what we can see and sense and taste, right? And it was like 74%. And I'm thinking, whoa, because I definitely have not come from that 74%. I've come from the 26% that does not, this is not a conversation to be had or believed in. It's to be, warned against.
Yeah.
And so, I think there's shift happening.
Yeah.
And the more we talk about it, the more people want to know, like, at least for me, the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know.
Yeah. I think I found that like because I'm comfortable with it and open with it, then it's just in using it not like I'm gonna sit here and preach to you or let me,
Yes.
I wouldn't, I'd try and read a chart, but I'm just like, because I use it conversationally and it's just part of my language now, oh, I'm a generator. Like, what do you mean? Like, and one of my profiles for the archetypes thing I said to you, the other one was like money archetypes. So I'm a celebrity. And one day I said, because I'm a celebrity, and my friend just lost it. And I was like, I'm so used to talking in that language that I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not like, I don't think, but I am like, I am like, that's my profile. So yeah, I would say
Yeah.
something like that. But she just thought it was so funny. So you're saying I'm a Leo, I'm a this, or because of, what's
Mm.
happening. I think the more that we have that conversationally and be open to it, there's going to be people who are open and can be curious and
Mm.
just I don't use it as a tool, like use it as
Yeah.
part of, you don't have to go all in, you
Yeah.
don't have to deep dive in, but being aware and just also just not denying that it's hard to deny that there is not an energetic something going on. And I have struggled with the world is changing. I keep hearing this, the world is changing, the world is changing. The only reason is because like, you love change. I too
Mm.
love change. And I'm just like, but the only constant is change.
Hmm.
There's always been change, but
There has
potentially,
always been change.
as you said, that collectiveness. But change is happening every single day. but maybe at this elevated pace.
There absolutely is, like, the only consistent thing is change for sure. And there are moments in history where there has been a paradigm shift, right? And so the industrial revolution was one of them. The agricultural revolution was one of them. But the AI, what's happening right now, is a paradigm shift. The access to knowledge is a big part of that. But there is also this knowledge. I was reading the book Many Masters, Many Lives just yesterday while my son was having surgery. And it is about a psychiatrist, a very prominent psychiatrist, who ended up going into past life regression unexpectedly through hypnosis with one of his students. And he did not believe in it at all. And he'd been already working with this person for 18 months with no benefits to her fears, her phobias, everything she was experiencing. And once he started hypnotizing her and she started regressing into past lives, these different experiences started surfacing that were related to the phobias that she was having in this present day. And it's a powerful book that, I came home and I was like, whoa, that's so cool. I was talking to my children about it. And my son, the fifth son, the one who is resistant to change, his first comment is the no. He goes, well, I don't believe in that. And I said, that's okay. You don't have to believe in that. But let's just hold space for a moment for the fact that there are billions of people in this world who believe in past lives, right? We have not grown up in a culture where that has been part of our understanding, but there are billions of people that do believe this. So your beliefs are based on what I have shared with you, what your father has shared with you, what have you been taught, and learned from your environment. So I'm just flagging. It's important to be open, right? So you can believe this or not. You can read this book or not. The information is there. You can experience it however you want. But for me to look at it and go, because there are different aspects in the chart that you can specifically look at of what has the person brought in from their past lives, like what's the imprint of energies that they're comfortable with, that they're natural gifts. You look at someone like Mozart, right, who at 3 years old was like playing the music that he was like, that is a gift that has been brought in, from my perspective, from a past life. And so when we can look at ourselves from that perspective too, and then go, okay, but where am I being asked to go in this life? I just think it's fascinating to see that there's imprints of energy that are helping to give us direction, should we choose. And there are plenty of people that never ever will choose to use this as guidance, and that is their prerogative just as well as it is mine to use it.
I love that. You'll have to send me the name of that book. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I hope your son is okay. And I wish I could talk to you forever, but I'm so conscious of time.
Yes.
I want to ask you, I want to thank you. You said something in our reading that made me want to cry, and was something that I've heard and heard and heard and heard, but it's just really kind of stamped it, and I've written it, and it is that my voice is my gift. And when you read it out, it just struck me. So I heard it many times through many things, compliments, blah, blah, blah. Feel it, but to just have it just the way you said it. So I just want to thank you for that. So yeah, like you said a lot of things in the time we were together, but that is just reverberated. So
Beautiful.
appreciate you bringing that out. Now, how can we find you? How can we work with you? How can we connect with you more?
Well, I have a website. It's just my full name, so AnneMarieGrace.com. And actually on the website, there is a free blueprint where you can go in. All you need is your birth date, time, and location. If you don't know the exact time, you can still get some information, but not all of it is 100%, right? So be as close as possible. And yeah, I have my own podcast, which is called the Wildly Beautiful Life podcast. You can find me there. And I welcome any inquiries about the work that I'm doing.
I love it. And what does living a life you love look like now for you?
Well, it's one of balance. It's one of family. So, like, what I really important to me is looking at our values. And so, my values are creativity and freedom and family and adventure. And so, how can I weave that into my life? And so, that includes like travel and like I want to tick off at least one new country every year, so that's on my list of things to do, and be here for my boys. I work from home. I love that. I'm quite the hermit. I do like my space, but I also like to create a space for communities, and I'm looking at some options there. So for me, it's really just doing something that is an impact for others, but also nurturing myself and my family and the people I care most about. So having a balance of that and lots of play.
I love it. I love it so much. I'm so glad that our paths crossed. So I shall shout out Beck Derrington again from SourceBottle. Thank you for bringing us together. Great resource.
Yes.
If you don't ask, you don't receive. So, and to anyone, you should put yourself forward. I didn't think I was the ideal candidate, but I was like, please pick me.
And I'm so glad you did.
Picked me. And, I love the work that you're doing, Emery Grace. The way that you brought it together, the blueprint is beautiful. Definitely to go and get that. That's such a beautiful gift that you've given, to get one of those for yourselves. And if you get the opportunity, I highly recommend a session to understand yourself more. It was such a gift to me, so I really appreciate it. And I know it's not the last time our paths will cross, so thank you for being here today and for sharing with us.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Emma.
Thank you for listening, lovely one. I hope this has inspired you to dream big and start creating a life you love today. If you love what you're hearing, don't forget to follow and rate on Spotify, and rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. It helps other awesome people to find this podcast and get motivated and inspired as well. Want to stay connected? Come and join the Live a Life You Love group on Facebook, or connect with me on Instagram, emmalovell.au. The same as my website, but all the details are in the show notes, lovely. I'll see you next episode for more inspiration